Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over my new Octarius Map Pack for the 3rd edition of Kill Team. But please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you find it useful? What do you think of the maps? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link at Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But let's get on with the video. So yeah, for today, I'm going over my Octarius Map Pack for the 3rd edition of Kill Team. It's been quite commonly requested. And personally, while I'm not a fan of Octarius, I actually don't really like the Season 1 terrain maps anymore. I don't think they're good. But, you know, not everyone has their Vocus kill zones. And even when everyone gets their sets of Hivestorm and such, it's going to take a while for stores and tournaments to fully get their sets painted, you know, so community members can start donating their Vocus sets for events and such like that. Because I expect, you know, we're probably going to be stuck using Octarius and other Season 1 terrain maps for probably at least 3 months, hopefully no more than 6, and then we can just say goodbye to it. So I'll be going through that, but let's get on with some basics. So for this map pack, you will only need the Octarius set. So if you've had the Octarius set, you should be fine. I won't be using the pillars or gangways, you know, those 2 little pillars and planks you can use because they don't really work in general. And also I'll be following through with some design principles in terms of rulings when it comes to the terrain pack. But the design principles is just to get you able to use your Octarius terrain sets, because everyone has Octarius, and get into playing the 3rd edition of Kill Team. I'm not going to do Morok, Chalnath and Nakmund for now. Maybe I'll do them later when I have more time. But in my personal opinion, the priority is Octarius, because I will just get more people playing. As I said, like Vocus is going to take a while to get people painted up, but that's all you'll need. You know, as I said, just give me more time. I've got other videos first, and then, you know, those Chalnath enjoyers and Morok enjoyers and Nakmund enjoyers will have their day. But I generally don't think those kill zones work as single box kill zones. Octarius barely works as single box kill zones, but you know, that's the downside of playing with the Season 1 terrain. I find the Season 1 2nd edition terrain does not work well at all for the new edition of Kill Team. And you're going to find that Octarius is quite toxic to play on in general, because there's so many big vantage points and so much little safe cover to hide behind that most shots are going to be at least obscuring, hopefully, into the drop zone. So that's something you're going to have to be aware on. I still highly recommend Vocus because it's just way more fun. I've had more fun playing on Vocus than I have in a long time for Kill Team. But enough about my ranting and talking. Let's get on with the map pack. So once again, here's the map pack. You know, it'll be free to download. There's the QR code that will link to it. So this is just the front page introducing to what it is. And then here's the breakdown of some of the terrain. So for the ramshackle walls, all the top parts, the ramparts, are light cover. There'll be 1 to 2 inches to clear depending on height, but they're just light cover. And then the vantage points are vantage, so they're light cover vantage. And then the walls are heavy, with the door being accessible. So the doorway will follow the rules for accessible as found in the core rulebook. I've just left them all the same. I know the other 2 pieces of Octarius ramshackle walls have hatches, but I've decided not to use them because otherwise, if you make the floor accessible, it's going to be really weird, even if you want to make it from the hatch. So you could make the hatchway accessible, but I think that's just too strange, because otherwise you just might as well just make the whole floor accessible. So the doorway is accessible. And also I've not made the vantage points blocking, because I think Octarius is such a line of sight visibility blocking kill zone. The vantage points are so strong, they need the holes so you can shoot up and down, just to make it easier to punish people up on top. So if you want to, you can play the floors as blocking, but I highly recommend you don't, just so it allows some counterplay, and you have to be more careful if you're standing up on a vantage point. Then you've got, you know, your ramshackle barricades. You've got 3 of them. They're all just light. I was tempted to give the largest one, which you can see in the picture, heavy, but it didn't feel right, so I've just given them all light. And then for the oil pump, it's still heavy terrain with vantage, and then the tap is insignificant, so it doesn't block movement. So no real change there. The only big thing is I haven't included hatches on the ramshackle wall, and the vantage floors aren't blocking on the ramshackle walls. Now we get the scrap piles. So they're light cover, so they're terrain with the light trait. They also have the scrap pile rule. So if you're a new player, this is the special action used to like traverse over these terrain pieces. But if you're an old player, you already know what it is. So I have updated the wording to reflect how scrap pile movements work in the second edition and just port it into third. It's a scrap pile. An operative cannot climb over a scrap pile. Instead, it must scramble reposition or scramble charge instead. So you've got scramble reposition for 1 action point. An operative can perform this action while within control range of a scrap pile. Remove this operative from the kill zone, then set it up within control range of the scrap pile it started within range of for this action. It cannot be set up within control range of enemy operatives, and an operative cannot perform this action if it is within control range of an enemy operative. This action is treated as a reposition action. So the way I've updated it a bit, before it was just like you fly across. So the reason I've said control range, because one of the FAQs for second edition said, if you put a scrap pile by a doorway, you cannot then use the door and scramble in the same time. So the reason I've used control range, so it just reminds you need to be visible to the scrap pile. So that just works with that wording. And then I've just reiterated it is a reposition action, so it counts as repositioning. So nothing really changed there. It's just, you can, as long as you're within an inch of it, you teleport effectively to the other side. There's no like you fly across, just clearer wording. Then you've got the scramble charge for 1 action point. An operative can perform this action while within control range of a scrap pile. Remove this operative from the kill zone, then set up within control range of a scrap pile it started within range of for this action. It must be set up within control range of at least 1 enemy operative after being placed. An operative cannot perform this action if it is within control range of an enemy operative and or if it has a conceal order. This action is treated as a charge action. However, an operative can still perform the dash action before or after a scramble charge. So once again, same principles, but this time you have to end a scramble charge within control range because it's a scramble charge. And then for the limitations, I've just put in, it needs, even though it's treated as a charge, just remind you can't do it on conceal, but if you have an ability to, let's say, charge from conceal, such as commandos and other operatives, then you can still do a scramble charge on conceal. And I've also added that you can still do a dash before or after, because that just synergizes with the FAQ we had for second edition, where second edition kill team said you could dash and then do a scramble charge, or scramble charge and then do a dash. I have just noted I've put scramby charge. I'll fix that in the document. I'll fix it later. Don't worry. Just ignore scramby charge, harambe charge. But effectively, they're unchanged. I've just tried to mirror the wording, as I've said, to update for the current edition of Kill Team, as well as just to mirror how it worked before. So no real changes. It's just trying to be as far as possible. If you're going to try and game this, like say, like based on the wording, don't make me put an FAQ out for this. That's just depressing. Then for the maps, these are the Octarius maps as per, well, the images from the Octarius book, which were harvested for me via Nick from Crossfire Games, and I've got an affiliate link for him if you want to check out the episode description below, which will give you like a discount to like all his map pack, well, not map pack, objective markers and tokens for Kill Team. But this is Octarius Map 1, so these are based on the universal maps you find in the approved ops. So this is Universal Map 1. As you can see in all the maps, I've put the objectives like on top of everything. So the objectives are very clear. They're not on top of the terrain. It's just to make it easier for people to set up. So you can tell where the objectives are supposed to be when they're underneath buildings and such. So all objectives, well, all maps are free objectives. And I've tried to make it as balanced as possible. The main issue is, you know, Octarius doesn't have much heavy, and with obscuring making it even harder to get, you're unfortunately going to be in a position where shooting teams are really strong, which is why, well, like way stronger than they should, because the vantage rule is fine on Vocus, but it's not really balanced on Octarius. Regardless, this is the best map I could come up with, Octarius Map 1. Both sides have a safe objective with it basically halfway under the ramshackle buildings. So the opponent can contest from the other side, and you know, you can still door fight, all that kind of jazz. So it should be okay. The intention behind the central building is because of the way the struts are for the oil towers, both teams have ways to cap, well, on conceal those objectives from the other side of the oil tower, but it does mean your opponent just has to get within 2 and shoot you. So they're not exactly safe close up, but they're safe from afar, which is a good trade-off, because otherwise this map just becomes unplayable. Then for map 2, this time one of the ramshackle walls is just off of the left central objective. So, you know, either if you're trying to camp that objective, you're going to get charged and shot, or, well, moved and shot, or repositioned and shot, or charged and shot. So that's going to be where the main fighting. Obviously, the bottom side has the oil rig to defend its central objective, but to balance out, the red side also has more of a larger vantage point to use to keep its objective safe. The objective is still on the ground floor. It's just to show that it's mostly hidden under the vantage point to balance out how strong the oil rig is, because it also allows staging. But this is a fairer map because it's an easier place to put Obscurion while making balanced kill zones. Then for map 3, I decided to be a bit crazy. Map 3 is fun. It's very dangerous, but fun. So once again, I probably will, if I update this map, I'll like flip that oil rig 180 degrees. So it's effectively away from the vantage points, but I wanted to test out at the moment so it has a reason, because the central objective is technically safe if you like move and dash in, but then the vantage points on the left-hand side of the map can shoot down and focus on the middle. So it becomes important to control the vantage points while also trying to make the central objective safe for some interesting play. Originally, I put the vantage points on the left-hand side behind the objectives, so you couldn't actually control them unless you were on the other side of the door. But then that was too dangerous because then it just turned into like gangsters shooting paradise. So it's a more interesting kill zone because basically if you're on one side of the door, you can move and dash to the other and hatchway fight if you're free APL. So it's not exactly super safe to just camp these objectives like safely. They are just underneath the ramshackle wall. So if you're on the other side, you can just see the objective. So you're in control range of it to make it easier to control. And then I've put the central large scrap pile just there. So you can't really easily charge from one of the central vantage, well, the left-hand side vantages to the middle objective on the right-hand side. This is an experimental Octarius map. Then you've got map 4, because if you weren't aware of, there's only 6 maps when it comes to approved ops, and diagonal deployments are gone, which is amazing. So once again, the oil tower is in the rig, well, in the middle, in the same idea. So like you can contest from either side from afar, but if you're trying to hide from on conceal on the objective, an opponent will easily be able to get within 2 inches to shoot you. So it's a fair trade-off there. And then I've just angled 2 of the large vantage points in the middle. So for example, the closest sides can get cover, but then the opposing side can stage. So next turning point, they can, move around and charge. So it's not exactly super safe. And then for the red side, I've put more light barricades in the way to slow them down getting to the middle. So it's not super safe if they're going to try and stage behind their vantage point on the lower right-hand side. Whereas the left side's a bit more open, on the blue, so they can more easily get to the middle, but they still have to, it takes them a while to try and contest the red objective on the top right. But this is more interesting because a lot of the dead space can be protected more by the vantage point, so this is not so detrimental to non-shooting teams, but it's still not easy for them, which I like. Then for Octarius Map 5 this time, because, it's long ways, I put one of the vantage points dead in the middle, so it's just underneath, so you can, like, if you're trying to camp it from one side, you're going to get door fort. And I've put one of the barricades to just make it a U-shaped building. So you've got heavy wall, and then the light wall on the bottom. Then in the middle, you've got the oil rig for red side to protectively move. And then on the blue side, you've got another vantage point covering their objective. So their objective, they're half over it, so they can control it from the other side to make it fair. Because once again, the oil rig is very powerful because it's not just, even though it's got a smaller footprint technically, in terms of like blocking heavy, because it's so wide and how you can hide so many operatives inside it at different angles, makes it difficult to punish. But this is an interesting map as well, although there is quite a lot of dead zone going into the drop zone, so it's going to be a bit harder for red side to deploy, but that's why I've made it harder for blue to push up if they want to try and get the oil rig to balance it out. So that once again should be another even map. Then for Octarius Map 6, once again the oil rig's in the middle. Both teams have a ramshackle wall on either side to provide, a heavy staging point, but it's only just on the objective, like it's barely touching it. So you're not going to be able to, you're only going to really get one operative who can safely control the objective. You can't directly charge across because I put a light barricade, a light ramshackle wall down the center, but you could stage off from the oil rig or move and dash, reposition and dash around, or try and like risk it through the door, although it's going to slow you down a bit. This map is a little bit safer if you're trying to deploy, because you could risk a reposition up to one of the vantage points and then try and get a shot on the opponent. So you're going to have to be careful of that, because at the moment your light barricades are safe, but each vantage point in the middle is like 3 inches away from with a reposition. So if you reposition there with the scouting option, you could reposition up and then shoot into the drop zone if you wanted to get a non-obscuring shot. So it's something you have to rely on. It's another interesting map, and oddly I've found it easier to make long ways maps than short ways maps for Octarius, which I think, you know, I really wish we could just add more scatter, but obviously that's a cost-related reason that most people can't do, and we want stuff, you know, that's easy for everyone to use. But generally, I think the long ways maps are pretty good. So for my Octarius map overview, there you go. That's pretty much everything. As I said, if you want access to that map pack, just scan the QR code, or the link will be in the episode description, as well as on my website where I go through all of my terrain guides, and I'll be updating as we go on. Personally, I'm still not a fan of Octarius. It's really bad, and it's aged really badly as well, just because there's very little like gaps. There's windows. Like if Octarius had windows, it would be much more playable, which was why WTC terrain was so much better than Octarius. As I said, I prefer not using blocking on the vantage points for the ramshackle walls, just so there's more counterplay because it's so powerful, and you're likely going to find yourself taking heavy barricades all the time when you're playing on Octarius, just to make your drop zone safe. It's unfortunate, but that's basically why the heavy barricades exist. So you're usually going to take one heavy barricade, and then you've got 3 other equipment points, but your opponent's going to be doing the same thing unless they're incredibly brave or have access to super conceal. So it's not like you're at a downside. Everyone kind of has to do it, unless you're like an elite team. But even elite teams have to do it unless they're super durable, because, you know, people just go like, oh, you're going to be obscured shooting into the kill zone, and, you know, you're on conceal, so you can either retain a crit or 2 saves. But there are a lot of dice that, you know, weapons that shoot more than 4 dice, especially like commandos who have 2 6 dice attack weapons. And, you know, if you run into operatives and teams that can ignore obscuring, obviously they're going to destroy Octarius. That's just the way it is. But at least with the universal equipment, there's ways to make it safe. And at least the heavy barricade can immediately keep you safe. And I've tried to design the map so there's a reason for you to take the reposition action if you want to try and risk it to get a non-obscuring shot. But then remember, your opponent's going to be on conceal, so they might even survive. So they might be just trading an operative for no point. And generally, the map should be quite interesting. You're going to find Octarius is way too large. And this is the problem all the Season 1 kill zones had. They don't really work as one-box maps. They need a little bit more, which is why I like the original Warhammer World maps, where they added extra pieces of terrain to all the terrain sets, where they added only a little bit to Octarius, but they added stuff to like Chalnath, Nakmund, and Morok. Personally, if we're going into other Season 1 kill zones, I think Chalnath just works, but there's so little terrain, you have too much dead space. And then Morok works, but it just eats a lot of the board. But it does, because there's only 3 objectives, the landing pad becomes a little bit better. I remember everything there is basically 2 inches to climb, which means it's actually easier to move around that board. But hopefully this map pack should be useful. And once again, thanks to Nick from Crossfire Games, whose assets I used to build older Octarius map packs, as well as this one, making it much easier for me to make. And eventually, as I said, once I've had more time and I've covered more important stuff for the new edition, I'll do new map packs for probably Chalnath, Morok, and Nakmund, even though they disappoint me greatly. I would rather, if people could, like paint up and bring their Vocus as quickly as possible, because I'll be bringing my Vocus to my local tournaments, you know, like tournaments I'm either running or playing at, because I think Vocus is really, really good. Offers a nice balanced experience, no matter if you're a melee team or a shooting team, in my opinion. It's a really well balanced and fun and engaging experience. Whereas even on these Octarius maps, I find Octarius very dangerous to play on. And especially later in the turning point, Vantage becomes way more problematic on the Season 1 kill zones, especially Octarius. And there are some problematic teams and operatives that are probably going to break these boards. But I've tried to make them as playable as possible. And if you can just feedback, I'll be able to adjust them as time goes on. Because all I'll do is just because the QR link will stay the same. So based on feedback, I can tweak the maps and then just upload the maps while unchanging the link. So it's not an issue if just people use it. So hopefully that's useful for everyone, and should be fully compatible with crit ops. Be very interesting to see how some of like endgame missions play. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know if you found this useful. Remember, I will have this in the episode description below with the map pack and all the links. And please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check for free in the episode description below, an affiliate link Element Games, an affiliate link at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adults of the crew, I have Tom, Supercow, Steven, Sam, Nick, Mercenary Q, Mayor of Meat Mountain, Lucas, John Thomas, Graham, Fangzu, Dave Meets World, Dad of Golden's Chris, and then for my veterans of the crew, I have Samja and Ryan. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, I'll be back with more videos. I've got a long weekend coming up, so I can like do some more stuff. I've got some interesting things to show for the new edition. You know, I want to show off some more interesting stuff to help new players. Like that's the, well, new and old players, returning players, all that kind of stuff. That's why I wanted to do the Octarius map as soon as possible, just because a lot of people have been requesting it, and I wanted to do something that will let people clearly and quickly get into playing games of the new edition, because it is so much fun and I'm having so much fun of playing the new edition. But I'll have my new battle report coming out soon, which will be really fun as well, as long as there's other kill team surprises. But remember, no matter what Season 1 kill zone you play on Kill Team, there's always a chance for you to win, as long as you can roll a crit.